Well, I'd say we had another bumper crop of these long-handled dipper gourds. But you know, even though they had a practical purpose back, well, 150 years ago, today they're more decorative. So why don't we come up with something really clever and interesting, something creative, another way to use these in decorating. Before we go any further, I'd like to thank our sponsors. The Garden Home Vlog is made possible by Gilbert H. Wild & Son, who've been growing beautiful perennials since 1885. Ralston Family Farms, a farm family producing delicious rice for your table. First Community Bank, whose heart is in the community, as well as Sun Patience, Super Cal Petunias, and Dragon's Breath Celosia. And Crystal Bridges, Museum of American Art. Check out my website to learn more about the brands we love. Yeah, just look at these gourds. Handful of seed, warm summer temperatures, something for them to grow on, whammo. Now we just had our first frost. You can see what happened very quickly. The leaves, because of the ice crystals that formed in each cell of the leaf, those crystallized sharp points pierced the cell walls of the leaves, caused them to collapse, and now they're drying into paper. So this is the perfect time to begin harvesting these gourds. You can see this one has matured and is virtually dry already on the vine. Now this is the long neck dipper gourd. This is a small one here, but you can see they have very straight handles, if you will. And that's because of gravity, because of this bulbous bottom of the gourd is giving a lot of weight here, so it's making these very straight. If you wanted this to curl, you could actually do all sorts of things with these gourds as they grow. I've grown them on the ground where they kind of make a ground cover through the summer. And you can actually begin to kind of twist these necks and you can curl them. One of the other things you can do is you can take a pair of, even just a pocket knife or a pair of secateurs or even a nail, and you can scratch things onto them, designs when they're young, and as they mature, those designs will, almost like scar tissue, will form and you're doing gourd art. What about that, huh? But we're going to do something interesting with them for the fall. As I mentioned, gourds were traditionally used as vessels to hold things, and so we're going to follow that tradition. And I'm just going to take several of these along with some of the flowers that survived our freeze and do something kind of fun, something different with them. And of course, I'm going to save plenty of these gourds to be able to use for next year. Again, taking the seed and planting them. When I cut them, I like to cut as much of a kind of a long stem as possible. Here's a good example up here. I think the stems are pretty interesting. So I like to cut them like this. There's actually two hanging from that stem. Just gives you a little more opportunity for artistic, well, gourd artistic expression. So why don't we get started? So who doesn't love a craft project? And growing these gourds and putting them to use is always something I look forward to in the fall. And we grow a lot of them. It doesn't take many seed and you can produce a bunch of gourds. So just what I'm trying to do here is I'm thinking about this arrangement where I might stand a few of them up like this, and these all have flatter bottoms and so they will actually stand. And then I discovered one that I could hold in place, the larger one, which had a larger bulbous area here. And what I did is I just took a sharp knife, and it's a nice heavy duty knife that's serrated, is really good, like a heavy bread knife. And what I did is I started at one top of this bulbous area here and began to saw actually, and began to shave off one hemisphere of this gourd like this. And I finally got it cut down. And just be careful because these things are tough, and you might even want to use a pruning saw because it is pretty tough and takes some real effort. But it made a vessel for me to put flowers in. Now, This will hold water, so obviously the water will keep the flowers fresh. So the next question is, what do we use to support our flowers? And we've gone through the garden and we've gathered a lot of things here. What I've got here is some old floral foam, a piece that I'm going to cut down a little bit. We're discontinuing the use of floral foam here at the farm. So I'm just using up what's kind of left around. We save everything, as you know. And I'm going to shove that in there. Some alternatives to floral foam might be some of the old-fashioned frogs. You've seen those around. Also, chicken wire is something that I use a lot. We could have wadded up chicken wire and put in there, and that would have held our stems. They're making some very clever grids that you can place in these sorts of vessels that will hold the flowers in place. And another thing you can do, and I would have done it with this, but it's a little tough, is that you can just take watermelon. Watermelon is a wonderful fiber that you can push flowers through. And this was a little tough because it had so many seeds. Look at all these big seeds in this one gourd. But we could have actually have used the flesh of the inside of the gourd, because this is still very moist. These are still very green and haven't started drying yet. But that pith on the inside can make a good thing for flowers to stick in. See there? Looks great, doesn't it? Designing with flowers is just that easy. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just put together this arrangement with some of the things that I've gathered from the garden. Many of you know I love lilies. Lilies are absolutely beautiful flowers, but the foliage is often overlooked. This is an oriental that I love very much called Black Beauty. And you've probably heard me talk about Black Beauty before, and I think that it is one of the best oriental lily types to grow, and it blooms during the summer. And what I'm trying to do here is just do a bed of yellow, green foliage that I can just kind of break the edges of the gourd by using these like this. Yep. And we've got a couple of more of these. You've seen me talk about these in the garden before. The flowers are a beautiful cerise pink, very dark pink. They bloom late. They're one of the latest of the oriental lilies that we grow here. They actually bloom in July, one of the hottest months, and I'm crazy about it. But there are a lot of orientals out there that you can look into. I can't imagine my garden without them. So look into them and plant them. You can order your lily bulbs from Gilbert H. Wild & Sons. All of our perennials come from Gilbert H. Wild & Sons, so check them out. All right, so I've got these pretty well in place. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some of these big marigolds. You've seen these growing in the garden. They're one of my favorites. So I'm using my larger, big, round orange flowers in this. I think orange and pink go so well together. And so I'm going with these big marigolds. I've already cut the stems off of them and the leaves. So I've just got a nice tight bloom with a short, strong stem on them. And I'm going to work in here. And then I'm going to take some of these Calocarpa berries, which is a wonderful plant that grows wild here. It's a native plant. We go. We're just going to work those in. Look at that contrast. There's just nothing quite like purple and orange. Work these in. And this is American Beauty Bush, Calocarpa americana, and grows wild here on Moss Mountain Farm. And we love to use it this time of year. It's a good plant for wildlife, and so that's another reason we love it so much. I'm going to add a few more of these carnation-like. Look at the size of those blooms on that. Isn't that just fantastic? This is a marigold, believe it or not, but it's one that we save the seed for each year and plant it. And for this very purpose, to be able to work them into the flower arrangements here at the farm. And then I've got some accent colors in the way of more purples that I'm going to add here. This is some of that marvelous celosia. Look at that intense color. Isn't that amazing? It works so well with the purple, works so well with the yellow. And got just a little bit here of a different type of celosia. So we're going to add some of that. Just going to cut down these stems a little bit. It helps to have a good sharp knife when you begin doing this. So I'm really kind of packing the color in. I've left some spaces here for me to add some of these tall celosia. And those just come up so generously in the garden from seed. Yep, okay. I can't waste these last few, these orange beauties. The marigolds are fantastic. And I like them just like I love mums, and we could have done this with mums, and I brought a few in from the garden to show you. We could have gone with a much more pastel approach where we're using these beautiful apricot mums along with some of these dried things and kept it very, very much in more of a pastel range, using some of the millet and so forth. But I decided, since these gourds are so green, to go with something much more vibrant. And so that's what we're doing with these. If the gourds were dry, which they will be very soon, then I would have probably gone with something else. We're going to add a little of that dry in just a moment. Just going to add some more of this little globe amaranth here. Top, and a little more over here. And with a lot of these little guys, I'll bundle them together and then cut the stems. And it just makes it easier for using them in the flower arrangement. Just tuck them in on either side. There's just no rules to follow other than trying to fill all those gaps, and I'm trying to use leaves to break the edges, leaves or blooms to break the edges of the vessel, in this case our gourd, so we want to break the edge there. And then we've got a little bit left of this wonderful dragon's breath celosia, and we'll use it right in the top of this other piece. So gorgeous. It looks like a flame. And then I'm going to add just a few little whimsical stems here that might suggest the dry prairie, the fall to come. Just adding a few of these little accents, which I think are delightful. Some of the grasses that we gathered in the meadow. Just a few more over here on this side. So they stick out above the sort of mass that we've created here with the overall floral display, the floral and leaves. And the beauty of this is everything has kind of come right off of the farm or out of the garden. And you can see here, just add a little bit more like that. And we'll add some of this, which I think makes it even more ethereal. So many native grasses out there. Now, you probably watched my YouTube show on grasses. You should check those out. Adding a few more grasses here. They add a lot, I think, this time of year. And if we wanted to, we could even go into some of this dried millet, which I think will pick up a little bit of those tones as well. Here's a little bit more right there. And we'll add one more piece. Larger piece kind of right here in the middle, along with that dragon's breath celosia. There we go. All right, now the idea here is to set this up. Let me just kind of set this on the board here. I've got so many things kind of in the way. But this would be the central gourd in this arrangement, like this, among these standing gourds, like that. And then I just brought in a little bit of of these twigs of grapevine, just to kind of work through the, see those beautiful twigs and vines? That'll kind of connect all of these together and on the table. And these are drying, they're not completely dry, but this is just muscadine twigs that are kind of coming out of it. But they tend to touch these other gourds and they tie it together, give it a little bit of a wilder look, and you can let them come up out of the top like that. Just kind of get creative with them and bring a little bit more coming across the front. What I like to do is break those lines, and that's what we're doing by these verticals are being broken by this horizontal. I'll add just a little bit more on this side. And you can kind of imagine this on an entryway table or even a dining room table, or maybe a setup for a wedding or a bar or something like that, just by using some of these gourds and things you've grown. So we're going to set this up, add a few votive candles, and hey, we're ready for guests. Now when you set it up finally, you may decide that you need to add a little bit of orange just to kind of pick up the final orange bit, and that's just as simple as placing some of those orange winter squash. Hey, if you like what you see, like it for me. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do it. And anytime you want to see new content, which is coming regularly, just ring the bell. And if you'd like a weekly newsletter from us, just go to my website, palensmith.com, and click on newsletter, and we'll make sure you get it. Okay?